We are live. I'd like to welcome everyone to another episode of Heart to Heart with Bree. We're starting earlier tonight. There was a scheduling conflict with Faquita. Faquita, I do appreciate you still being able to do the show. Please introduce yourself to the viewers.
Thank you so much, and also thank you for adjusting the time for this show. My name is Faquita Aiken Rivera, and I am a native islander of Hilton Head, South Carolina. I'm four generations from my dad's side and five generations of the Gullah community in Hilton Head. I am a mother, a wife, a recently ordained elder. I work with the youth and children, and I am, getting ready to launch a behavioral coaching services that will provide services for kids who have, some behavior delays and some behavior and special needs problems or that they need adjustments on. So I am Gullah, and I'm excited to be here on this evening.
I've really been looking forward to this conversation. I had the privilege of living on Hilton Head for quite a few years. My family still lives there, and that was when I first found out about the Gullah culture. So I have to ask you for my very first question. What is the Gullah culture?
Well, it is a culture that actually is a combination of the enslaved Africans that came from West Africa and they were migrated here in Hilton Head. So the Gullah culture is a West African and Central African piece that came to the Sea Islands and the Low Country. And those enslaved folks were able to embrace it because, though they were slaves, they were in this barrier island atmosphere. So they were pretty much, still free to embrace the culture that came from Africa. Um, so they combined that with the American culture as well. So enslaved Western and Central African people and descendants. So we're descendants of those, and the language and all. When we get to talking a little bit more, that language is also a combination of the Western and Central African language.
What is the Gullah culture known for?
So we are known for our, of course, our language, our food, which is the cuisine, arts and craft, music, and our spirituality. Um, just with any of the enslaved people, music and spirituality was also, kind of like a code as well. So the spiritual part of that were, with the songs and things that they um, did while they were in the field, the slaves sang about in the fields. It also came to all of us now that we are, in this era. So it's music, arts and crafts, language, and food, especially.
Yes,
In
I've heard a lot about the various things you mentioned, and we'll dig a little deeper later on in this episode.
Yes, yes.
Where are the various Gullah communities located?
So it goes from the coast of North Carolina, like Wilmington Island, North Carolina, all the way down to Jacksonville, Florida. So all of that in between. So you have Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina is where most of the Gullah Geechee resides and still practice the culture heavily. So if you've ever heard of Sapelo Island, they're Barrier Island as well, just like Hilton Head, and that Sapelo is in Georgia. And then you have some more barrier islands that are connected to um, our culture. And just like I was telling, I was telling Bridget that even though you know your culture, you still have to write some notes down and things on,
Yes.
different things to share. So it's the coastal regions of South Carolina, Georgia, and parts of Florida and North Carolina, like I said. And then, so in this area, we are the Sea Islands and Low Country. So That includes Hilton Head, of course, and the Penn Center area, which is St. Helena Island. And then you have Defusky Island. So Beaufort, South Carolina is a part of that.
Okay.
Charleston and James Island, Johns Island, Edisto Island, Georgetown, Savannah, and Sapelo Islands are also included in the location of where the Gullahs are.
Oh, well, that's actually very fascinating because, you know, for the longest, I assumed it was only Hilton Head and the Fusky Island, so
Mm-hmm.
you just taught me something. So thank you for that information.
Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
for someone that wants to learn about the culture, someone if they would like to plan a vacation around that, I mean, is there anyone that offers any kind of tour or anything like that so a person can become immersed into the culture?
Oh, absolutely. In all those areas, and I'm going to just kind of just delve into the Hilton Head area because that's where I'm from. But
Yes.
yes, most certainly in Brunswick, Georgia, in Savannah, Georgia, in Charleston, South Carolina, they do major tours. In Hilton Head, we do have a Gullah tour. It's a family of one of the big names in Hilton Head, which is the Campbell family.
Yes.
They started the Gullah tour services to provide tours for the local communities. So you do have like your local communities where people still practice and still cook the food and still wear some of the pieces like in West Africa and Central Africa. So there are services to provide you when you come in the area to educate you on newly. If you ever heard of a historic, because you mentioned St. James when we were talking, St. James has the Cherry Hill School still located on their property, and
Okay.
right down the street from that is historic Mitchellville Freedom Park, which is a huge piece to Hilton Head, and it's a huge piece of history. Actually, where Harriet Tubman, brought some of those slaves to freedom
Oh,
in
wow.
that town. So you have a lot and a wealth of information, or just a wealth of various ways to learn more about it and to actually get some hands on. They the baskets that we make, the seagrass baskets and all those things, people still do those, making blankets and things like that. Everything is still, being done the same way that our ancestors did, when they came in the country.
Oh, wow. On my next trip to Hilton Head, that will definitely be on my to-do list, and I'll let you know when I'm coming to so I can actually meet you in person. But I
Please
would
do.
definitely love to see some of that. Now, what are some of the traditional Gullah dishes?
Absolutely red rice.
Wow.
In West Africa, they call it jollof, but we call it red rice. Um,
Okay.
you know, some people make it. I've cut my time down of making it now. I use V8 juice. You use tomato paste. You cut up your vegetables. You cut up your sausages or your bacon or whatever you want in it, and you pretty much have a full meal with the rice because
Yeah.
you have a protein there. Most definitely, seafood is one of them. Fried fish goes very well with red rice. Um, One of the pastimes or one of the careers or jobs that people had were fishermen. So, of
Yeah.
course, we ate a lot of seafood. So okra soup, you can make, you put shrimp in your okra soup. You can put blue crabs in your okra soup. Shrimp and grits is the number one that most people, when they come in the area or any of those areas on the coast, people want to try that shrimp and grits. Most of us know how to make it at our own home.
Yeah.
Low country boil, it's more than outside. Like when we have gatherings and things outside, you have a low country boil that includes your potatoes, your corn, your sausage, your shrimp, or your blue crab. So it is a lot of items: sweet potato pie, gumbo, ocean rice, crab and rice, seafood rice. There's a wealth of things, a wealth of dishes that we still carry on. Lots of stewed items too, Bridget.
Okay.
like a stew shrimp, a stew fish, a stew chicken, more things that provide gravy. Hoppin' John
Yeah.
definitely is another one of the main dishes. So I could go on and on.
A lot of that sounds like comfort food to me. Are there any like desserts that the culture is known for?
I know when I was younger, I grew up close to which is now known as Highway 278, but my grandmother had a field, and then in that field next to it and around it, there were blackberry bushes. So
Okay.
we didn't care if we got sticky briars on us. We knew that my grandmother said, "I'll make y'all that blackberry dumpling if y'all go, if you go and get some blackberries." So blackberry dumpling is a dessert dish, and then you have, of course, sweet potato pies is also another dessert dish. Lots of
Okay.
people make pound cakes. I had a cousin named Miss Annie Gatson. She made probably the best pound cake in Hilton Head. We knew that pound cake was going to be good, Bridget, because that butter. If you see that
Wow.
butter, you see that butter settled in, and you can kind of see a little bit of that. That pound cake was going to be good with some butter pecan ice cream.
Oh wow. That sounds absolutely delicious. Now, are there any restaurants in Hilton Head that serves this kind of food?
Right now, not only restaurant that will serve close to this food is Ruby Lee's, and Ruby Lee's is
Okay.
located in the Gullah community.
Okay.
Um, and that owner, Tim Singleton, is the owner of that restaurant.
Okay.
But we have a new restaurant, which is a very, very amazing vibe. Bridget Frazier, who also is on the town council for Bluffton, South Carolina, she has a
Okay.
new restaurant named after her grandmother, which both of these restaurants are named after their grandparents.
Okay.
Ma Daisy's. So Ma Daisy's and Chef B's, they are very influential in the community when it comes down to the food presentation and the food presence. So if you ever come, you definitely have to go
Oh,
with me to
trust
my
me,
baby.
I will definitely be. And if you don't mind reaching out to her on my behalf, I would love to have her as a guest,
Oh,
to
you
talk
would.
about her restaurant.
Oh, she would definitely be willing to do that, and she would
Wonderful.
add lib to this information
Yeah,
that
I
we're
would
talking
love to
about
because
today.
I feel sad to know that I lived there all this time and I didn't really take the time to really learn about the culture until now. But, I am finding all of this very fascinating. I love history, and I think the world should know about the Gullah culture. I know a lot of people, especially outside of the United States, they may never have heard of the Gullah culture. Like, I didn't hear about the Gullah culture, like I said, until I moved to Hilton Head,
Right,
and
right,
back then there weren't too many people talking about it. This is like in the early 80s.
right.
I've just noticed lately that it's become more popular, which I this culture deserves to be known about. I have to say that. Now
Absolutely.
let's talk about the Gullah arts and crafts.
Yes. So I mentioned about the quilting.
Yeah.
Um, that was something that great grandmothers passed down, and the quilting told a story about that family. And then we have sweet grass basket weaving. That's also a West African, like it's a coil basketry type style,
Uh-huh.
and we have people still do those and still sell those and make a living off of it. And then there's artists that do wood carvings and tell a story. And I'm not sure if you noticed some of the paintings from some of the artists. Some of them are faceless, just to kind of get you involved in the painting, so
Oh
you
wow.
can tell. You can pretty much like tell the story. They still do handmade fish nets. People are still doing that to go fishing and crabbing in. Um, and again, paintings that reflect like the life of the Low Country. So arts and craft is still prevalent. In February, we have February is the month where we hold for Black History Month, but
Okay.
this year the Native Island. So there's an organization called Native Island Business Community Affairs Association, and
Okay.
they host a Gullah celebration every year. So they're in their 30 year. This is the 30th year that they've been doing it,
Oh
and
wow.
they get vendors from all over. I'm going to say the world, because we've had vendors from Senegal and Kenya and those that come during that time to sell actual, you know, actual arts and craft pieces and jewelry.
Oh
So that's
wow.
during the
That's
time. Yep, that's during that long weekend when it's the President's Weekend, and I can't recall the date right now, but it's definitely it's been on for 30 years, and it gets growing and growing and growing. And this year we're combining it with another organization, but vendoring arts and crafts is still very prevalent in our area.
well, you know what? Before this festival comes up again, I would love for some of you guys to come back, come to the podcast and to promote it, you
We're
know?
about to expand your show, Bridget.
I would love that. I mean, this information should be out there, and I'm really excited. You know, there was a gentleman that I remember years ago. He would come by with his artwork. His name was, I think, Mr. Joe Pinkney, or
Mr. Joe Pinkney, he was an amazing artist. Yes.
yes,
And
yes.
Jonathan Green is also another one. He's a well-known artist as well.
Okay,
He's from the St. Helena, Beaufort area.
okay.
He's the one that when I got introduced to the art, of course, I've had the art around me, but like you said, the culture is just being elevated, within the last, what, 20 so years. So
Yes.
in my upbringing, I knew that I was Gullah. I knew that I had that in my culture, but it just wasn't something that you just went around. I'm Gullah. You didn't go around and
Yeah,
say it like
right.
that. But yeah, Mr. Joe Pinkney was a definite, a featured artist in our community.
You know, Ricky, my mom's husband, he has a painting, and I think it's called Uncle Remus, if I remember correctly. And it's an old man. He's sitting and eating, but there's something
Hmm.
very beautiful about that painting and its simplicity. But yeah, he was. Is he still alive?
I don't think so.
Okay, but a great artist. I mean, if you see his works out there and you're able to, get a piece, I'm telling you, because Ricky has had that for years. But
For
I remember he
years.
would always stop by and show Ricky his artwork, and I
Hmm.
remember being very impressed.
Yes, yes. I think he did go door to door with his artwork. He
Yeah,
do the door to door sales or the door to door presentations.
imagine. I mean, today he could do a lot of business online.
Man, it's
He would
it's
do
such
great
a
business.
listen. The expansion it's enormous.
I'm pretty sure now. Is there anyone that does jewelry like earrings and wooden
They
necklaces?
are several young ladies, and I can't recall names, but I know, like, if you go to these um, markets, is what we call, like, the flea markets or the markets. We call them Gullah markets, which Bridget Frazier, like I said, she has the newest development on her
Okay.
property. She has a market, and she showcases these vendors every weekend. So it's like going to, if you go to New York and you go to Chinatown and you got all these vendors, it's kind of similar to that, but in a growing state. So there are a handful of them that I, can kind of just visually see their work. I don't have names right now, but I do know um, a couple of them that do handmade jewelry, handmade clothing. One young lady I know for sure, she gets her materials from Kenya, and she
Oh my
creates
goodness.
the styles and the fans. The fans when we get hot. We at that age now, Bridget. We
Yes.
are,
Oh, trust me.
yes,
I know what you're talking about.
and she makes earrings and things out of those materials. So there are a lot of vendors that are self employed business owners that are moving forward in that direction, and promoting their services with the
Oh
artwork.
my, I'm really looking forward to coming back to Hilton. I am really excited about my upcoming trip. Now, let's talk about the dialect. Is there a Gullah dialect? And if so, please share a few of the words with us if you don't mind.
Well, Gally, they asked me that again. So what I just said, girl, she's asking me this again.
Yes,
So that's part of the dialect, and we right before we got on, we were talking about code switching, but I'm gonna go through some of the ones that are pretty familiar. So day clean, if someone says it wake up in a day clean, that means early morning.
yes,
Day clean means early morning. Chilling, you see them chilling over there by the tree. Chilling is children. Either come, that means he or she is coming. Instead of saying thing, we say ting, the ting over there. Benya, that's someone that's been in that area, been in the low country, been in the, in the sea islands. And a kamya is somebody that's come from another area and now they're residing in the area, in the sea island areas, in the Gullah land. So those are some of the, dialects that we use. Like I said, when you are within the mix of your family, like having family gatherings and Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner, it comes out so naturally.
yes,
Then when you are out of, your space with your family and friends and you're professional working, now you have gone to a code switch. So we call that code switching, but
yes.
we know who we are. We're embracing it a lot more now with our dialect and just really enjoying who we are in this country.
I think it's a beautiful thing. And I can tell you, my parents are from Jamaica. And I some of the words sound very similar. Both of my parents are Maroons, and but it's like, as and I want to do an episode speaking about the Maroons because I think it's just so fascinating, and it's something that I am very proud of. But I think there's a lot of similarities between both cultures,
Yes,
and as like, I remember my mom saying, she mentioned it to me, like she noticed that there were some people who sounded like they were from the Caribbean. And
yes,
some of the words that they said, it sounded like what we call patois in Jamaica.
yes.
Very, very similar. But I really think it's a shame for those who had felt the need to like code switch, as you said, because I think we should all embrace who we
Who
are.
we are. And you're absolutely right. We should keep that's our language.
Yes.
It's like we're bilingual.
Yeah.
We are
Yeah,
bilingual
right,
in a
right.
way.
That's
And
I totally agree with you on that, which leads to my next question. How important is it to the community that their customs are passed on to the next generation?
I'm going to say it's vital.
Yes.
And I'm going to say it's 911. It's emergency. It's emergent that it's passed on because it is your culture.
Yes,
Who goes and wash it down? You shouldn't. You actually should add more to it. The more you learn about it, the more you should add to it.
I agree.
You know, in our communities, we have the elders. So you have the elders, which are your matriarchs and your family. So anybody that's left in your generation or in your family, that's considered, you may only have one person that's left. I know for me on my mom's side, I have my mom's first cousin who is well over 85 years old, and my mom's baby sister who is about to turn 70. So those people are considered the elders to me, but it's vital that this culture is withstanding and it can stand on its own. It doesn't need anybody else forging your arms up. You should definitely just go out and be a warrior about who you are, where you come from, and where it's going to go. So families need to talk about the stories. They need to share it with the young people. They need to, share the dialect with them as well. Because some kids, I work in the school system, Bridget, and a lot of them don't know that that's a language. A lot of them don't know that. So it is vital. It's
think
911.
that's a shame. I look back, I'm 62 years old, and you know, I I was fortunate enough to live with my grandparents for a little while when we first moved from England to Jamaica. And my grandfather, he loved to tell us things.
Hmm.
He would share a
Hmm.
lot of information with us. I look back and I regret that I didn't learn more from my grandparents. I because I think that it's important to know about your history,
It is.
where you came from. It's like, my parents are from the country. And I remember moving to Jamaica in 1974. My grandparents didn't have electricity at the time. And my grandmother had it was like a little stove that she would put coal in, and that's how and she would put like about 6 or 8 irons, and that's how they iron. You know, I think back to a lot of the old things that I learned about and that simple way of life. At the time, I took it for granted and turned my nose up at it. But there's something beautiful about it now. I think that, what is modern, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's better. And
Right.
I think that we need to embrace the old ways. I think we need to be proud of what we are. And I'm so thankful for you coming and sharing about the Gullah culture. And I'm hoping that you will come back and that you will tell others that I'm definitely interested in promoting this culture on my
Absolutely.
podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
this is I'm learning so much from you. And I have to ask because I've heard this term geechee, and now I can tell you that some people would use it to tease other people.
Right.
Oh, you're geechee, or you sound geechee. What does geechee mean? And why is it used in reference to the culture?
So, I'm learning more and more about Geechee because that's
Yeah.
what he referenced us as before I knew that I was Gullah. So I would say like the Geechee is more like people from Georgia, more inland of the Georgia area. We are all that. It's Gullah Geechee. So there's really no difference in the Geechee. Is if I were to really say Fakita's way of defining it, Geechee would be the language and Gullah would be the culture.
Okay.
You are Gullah Geechee. So it's just all pretty much the same way. And it came from, I want to say, in some of my conversations, the Ogeechee River, which is, it's a region, Ogeechee, the Ogeechee region, not river,
Okay.
but it's in the Georgia area. And I think that's where the word Geechee may have come from. So I'm not so valid on the Geechee
Okay.
side of it, but I think that's because most of the people from Savannah area, they would reference to being Geechee.
Okay.
We on the South
Okay.
Carolina side reference to Gullah, but it's all pretty much the same. It's
Okay.
really
Okay.
close together.
Years ago, I remember watching a documentary about a singing group. I believe they're from St. Helena's Island,
Hmm.
and they were promoting the Gullah culture in their performances. And, they interviewed the singers individually, and there was a man in the group, and I remember he said that he was very ashamed when he went to school of being called Geechee, and because there was a stigma attached to it at the time.
Oh yeah,
And he said joining that singing group, it really helped him to embrace who he was and to be proud,
yeah,
to be proud of who he was and what he stood for. And I think it's important for us all to have an understanding of our background and understand that there's beauty in everything, whether
every
you look at it as simple, whether you look at it as, because I know that, like I said, my parents are from the country. And some people
hmm
think if you're not from a city or if you're not from a town that you don't have it going on. You're
right,
a country bumpkin. But there's something
right.
beautiful about country life, in my opinion.
Right, right. Well, I can attest to that as well. So I went to college to a college in North Carolina. It was a smaller college, but Raleigh, North Carolina is a pretty decent sized city.
Yes.
And a couple of friends of mine, we all grew up here in Hilton Head, and we went to college together. And we were just having a conversation. It's like walking on the yard, but we were talking in our language. We were talking Gullah, and we were going down to the cafeteria, and there were some people there they were from the Bahamas, there was some from Jamaica, there was some from the Virgin Islands, and they stopped and asked us. They were like, "Are you all the tennis players from?" I think it was Jamaica,
Okay.
and they said, "What island were you from?" And we did not. We couldn't make the relation to island as far as our island, so we
Right,
said
right.
Hilton Head Island. We said we're from Hilton Head Island. And they're like, well, we never heard of Hilton Head Island. I said, well, it's a barrier island in South Carolina. But at that point, it did not make, I wasn't ashamed to be who I was. Because I
And see,
think
that's a
some,
beautiful thing.
there were some spaces in my life where I believe, you have family members that come in from, New York or Philadelphia or Pennsylvania area, and they grew up city, so they didn't grow up like we did. We were different,
Yes.
and they didn't understand that difference. I think now that we're all older, we understand the difference, and we're not really different. You came from the same great grandmama I came from.
Yeah.
You just happened to migrate to New York City, but you
Right.
are still a Gullah Geechee.
Yeah. Yeah. I often wonder, like, how many of us are probably related. When you think about it, the ships from Africa went to different
Different
destinations, right?
destination,
So it's like maybe your ancestors, came to this country and mine went to Jamaica,
right?
because there are so many similarities in the cultures. I mean, honestly. Now,
You
the
right.
dishes, yeah, there are some differences, but I do believe that I would love to go deeper into this, honestly, to see if there's any connection, because I believe that there are.
And you're right about that. And there was, if we ever do like a part two or part three of this,
I would love
there
to.
is there is an image of the way they were dropped off.
Yes.
And if I had time to research that now, I would send it to you. But I could probably send it to you after this podcast.
Yeah.
But there's pictures out there that people have, and that's been a conversation. Like, what is the focal point of where we all came from? Like,
Right.
we are all in this middle eye, but except we got dropped off different places. So when you talk
Yes.
about patois,
Yeah.
and when you talk about the language in the Virgin Islands, the Bahamian language, because I know I sound more Bahamian than I do. There's sometimes I sound more Jamaican than I do. There's sometimes people from Charleston sound like the people from New Orleans, and that's another piece.
Yes.
People in Louisiana have some other dialect as well. So it really is deeper than what we think and where
I
we're
I
at.
agree with you. I definitely agree with you.
Yeah. So there's so much more to this story.
Yeah,
So much more.
I think we should definitely plan on doing a part two, and let's try to do some research, because I do believe that there are some connections there
I
that
believe
would
so
be
too.
really cool to know about.
Yeah, and if you bring some people from somebody else from maybe Jamaica or Bahamas or whatever, and it could be where we come together at a round table and talk about that, and then bring it back to your podcast.
I would love to. That sounds good. I would definitely like to do that. Now, earlier we met, you mentioned about, one of the gatherings there. Like,
Mhm.
are there gatherings that are held throughout the year? And is it a big tourist draw to the island? And would you mind mentioning some of them? So maybe some people might feel like planning a vacation around the island.
Yes. So you have, again, I was telling you about the Gullah celebration.
Yes.
Starts in end of January and goes all through the month of February. And then Penn Center Heritage Day is in November. I don't know exact dates, but I know that day which is in St. Helena. It's in the month of November. And then there is Gullah Festival. So there's a difference between Gullah Celebration and Gullah Festival. Still all kind of like the same thing, but Gullah Festival was around a little bit longer than Gullah Celebration.
Okay.
They do that Memorial Day weekend in Beaufort, South Carolina.
Okay.
There's a cultural day in Sapelo Island. I think they're still doing that. There's a fish and grit music festival that is um, pretty new, but the young lady is a musician, so she wanted to do more of the music side and the food
Okay.
side of our culture, and that's always in October, the
Okay.
first week in October. And most of the churches are always going to have like their choir anniversary or church anniversary,
Yes.
pastor's anniversary. Those are also considered a part of the different types of gatherings that we have. And then now we have Juneteenth. So you got the Juneteenth celebrations. Right now, there's a local young lady. She migrated here, so she's a Kamya
Okay.
in the Beaufort area. She's doing Mr. and Miss Juneteenth, and they have
Okay.
like a scholarship that they do for kids, who want to go and go to college or go to tech school, but they are all recognized as being Mr. or Mrs. for their area.
Okay.
Um, so that happens around Juneteenth time. But there
Okay.
are, there's a good bit of things going on for people to come and, learn more and get involved. Historic Mitchellville Freedom Park is expanded so. I mean, they put about $6 million into that property. So
Oh,
that's one that I would tell the listeners and the viewers to get let's get more information on that and look at their calendar to see what's happening for them as well.
oh, I tell you what, I definitely have to plan to come to one of these events because they sound so interesting.
Hmm.
Let's talk about the traditional costumes. Is there a traditional way of dressing when they hold these festivals?
Yeah, they do. And some of them opt into doing the African gears, so
Okay.
African prints and head wraps. There is a group in Hilton Head. They sing and they dress up into the head wraps when they sing. They go out and sing,
Okay.
just like the Hallelujah singers, um, Hallelujah shouters and dancers. They all dress in the traditional, like handmade head wraps and things like that, and garments with different bright colors and patterns. So yeah, they do dress up in what they call is cultural wear.
Okay. Okay. Sounds
Hmm.
so similar to Jamaica,
It
honestly.
does.
It sounds very similar to Jamaica. Now, does does the community celebrate, well, you mentioned the singing, is dancing and like drums a part of the celebrations?
Absolutely. They do mostly all of that.
Okay.
Sing, dance, drum, yes. Even praise dancing, all of that is
Okay.
included when we have festivities and ring shouts, um, like the Hallelujah singers. Like I said, call and praise response is a popular one that we do. So if I'm up on stage and I'm saying something, I tell the audience to say it back, and you kind of do that back and forth call and response. And of course, yes, drumming and dancing at the same time,
I
storytelling.
remember I remember reading about that, and I think the way it was explained was back in way back in time when they said some churches didn't have hymnals, and for people who didn't know the words, it was the way that was their way of getting the repeating,
Oh
they
yeah,
would say, and and they would respond,
yeah,
and they
call
said
and
that,
response.
and yeah,
Hmm.
wow,
Yes, and storytelling, because you have Dr. Louise Coyne, who is one of our elders in the community, and she does lots of storytelling. And there's some more that are coming behind her and doing that as well. And she has the Gullah
okay.
Museum, so Gullah Museum is here. Bridget. There's a lot here. There's a lot
That I that's what I'm realizing. I mean, I did not realize there was so much. Please bear. I forgot to lock my door before the podcast. My grandson always tries. So Jane, okay, he went back out. Oh, I'm so sorry about that.
that's all
Please
right.
accept my apologies.
That's
Um,
okay.
please tell us about the various museums and art galleries.
So we have Gullah, the Gullah Museum, and then we have the historic Mitchell Freedom Park
Okay,
that's here.
okay,
And I know in Savannah now, I have to look at my notes at some of the things that's in Savannah.
okay,
Um, Coastal Discovery Museum here in Hilton Head.
okay,
Then there is in Charleston the Gibbs Museum. Sapelo Island has a visitor center.
okay,
Um, Gullah Cultural Heritage Corridor, they have an office and they have an exhibit in there. I know there's so many more because Charleston has also the um, African American Cultural Center
okay,
as well.
okay,
Yeah, so those are the ones that I know like right off the top of my head.
okay,
And I'm going to
okay,
mention Historic Freedom Park because that's a self walk through park,
okay,
and they start you with information. You kind of walk through the park yourself and do a self tour for that.
okay. Now, do you find that there are people from all walks of life when they come to Hilton Head or the other
I'm
uh
sorry. I think.
go
Can you hear the noise in the back?
I can hear it a little bit. It's
Okay,
but I can still hear you.
you can still hear me. Okay,
Mhm.
I just think
I
your
can still
listeners
hear
are going to
you.
be like, "Where is this lady?"
I can still. So for have you noticed like that there are people from all walks of life that come and embrace the Gullah culture when they come and visit the various communities?
Yes, from all over. I know I met people here from, of course, Canada when they were visiting this country. But yes, all walks of life, the wealthiest, the middle class, everybody. They want to know about this culture.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. Now, earlier you mentioned quilts. How popular are the quilts? Are people still wanting to buy quilts?
Yes, they're still making quotes and selling them. Like I said, it's a family heirloom, so the quotes tell a story.
Yes.
People are still making them. As a matter of fact, um, probably about 5 years ago, we made a couple for my nieces because my mom passed before they could get to know her.
Okay.
So to tell the story for her, we used pieces of her clothing, and I had a quilter make them a quilt. So yeah, at any given time, you can get a quilt made. And of course, sweetgrass baskets aren't hard to get made as well. They are all readily available.
Okay. Now, do they still have, I think I heard of what's called like a quilting party or something where women gather together to put to do the quilts. Do they
Do
still do that?
them. They don't do that so much in this area, but that's a great idea. They don't do that so much in
Right.
the mid area. Now I'm sure they probably
Okay.
do Charleston or
You know,
Brunswick.
I didn't when I was younger, I did not see the beauty that I see now in quilts. And
Hmm.
what really helped me to understand the value of the quilts was there was an episode of Family Matters. I don't know if you remember that episode where Laura, her grandmother had a quilt, and she told Laura that one day it would be passed on to her. And she told her basically what you said, that it tells a story of their
Hmm.
family. And, she said that you can't place a monetary value on the quilt.
Right.
And Laura went to a store, and this lady, it was a lady, there was a lady that was selling quilts. Laura told her about the old quilt that her grandmother had. And the lady said, maybe you should bring it and show it to me. And Laura took the quilt without her grandmother's permission and she sold it to the woman for $500, right? And her grandmother was very upset. And when Laura went back with her grandmother trying to get the quilt back, the price had jumped up, I think, to like maybe 2000 or something like
Mm,
that.
yeah.
But she would not give them back the quilt. You know, her grandmother went with the money, and Laura felt very guilty because her grandmother was upset. But she said that there was a valuable lesson in what Laura learned, because
Mm-hmm.
Laura didn't understand she thought about the money, but she didn't think about
And
the importance
understand.
of the legacy of the quilt.
Right, right, right.
You know,
And
so yeah.
that's the same mainly, still in this with this culture as well. I mean,
Yes,
if it's a sale of the quilt, it's a sale based on the labor they've done for someone else's family,
yes,
that may not have taken the quilting that seriously, but they want to get a quilt made, but not necessarily selling their own family quilt.
yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's a very, like I think back to like my deceased son. I saved a few pieces of his clothing, and that's something to actually think about, like a
Oh
quilt
yeah.
or something, that's,
Yeah.
I think that's really a good idea. Now, I've never heard of like the quilts until I came to this country.
Oh
Yeah. So I think that's really now, did was that tradition brought from Africa? Do you know?
yes.
It was,
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah. That was brought from Africa. Yeah, and they told the story, or they, when they were being freed and going to different homes, the quilting was a pattern to show that this house was a house that you can bring slaves in, and it also was a mapping piece as well for the person taking them to their freedom. So yes, quilting
That
is.
is definitely very fascinating. What would you like to say to the younger generation about embracing their heritage and keeping the culture alive?
It is a part of your blueprint. God have created each of us in His image, and He would want us and want you as a youth or as a descendant of the Gullah culture to learn more about it and keep it. And it's like we talked about it being not a price to be added to it, but it's way more valuable in knowledge than it is in money. And there's books out there that could help you and to kind of help you establish more about your culture or get more established about your culture. And one of those books, if you don't mind, I'm going to just promote this
No,
one.
please. I was about to ask you to please name some books because I definitely would like to look some of these books up myself.
Okay, I know for one for sure that I have in my library is Gullah Days. Now, the people that wrote the book, they are three Gullah Geechee Native Islanders that represent three different families in the Hilton Head area. However, we know that there's so many other names and families, but they
Yes.
did their very best to make sure that in this book, it talks about being a Hilton Head Islander before the bridge. So it does go back to share some of the stories about maybe somebody um, in your stepfather's family. So they did do the very best they can. But I just would say to families who have young people to really embrace the history and getting books and keeping the grounding of our culture in house. Um, and I'm going to see, I think there's a couple other books, but that was the one
Yeah,
that I
sure.
had.
Tell us all of them.
So there is a book by um, the Fussy Island has a book by Jenny Fripp,
Okay.
and then the Gullah people and their African heritage by Turner. Gullah Culture in America, Wilbur Cross.
Okay.
That's just to like name a few that I've found, but I'm sure there's many more. You know, if you like just Google some things about the Gullah culture or Gullah culture books or books on history. I wanted to mention, like when we if we do a part two, there is a family member of mine, and he lives in Savannah. His name is Dr. Amir Toure. He actually is the doctor in the African American African studies. So
Okay.
he's has a wealth of knowledge. Um, would be a very good piece to
Oh,
add
let
to
me tell I
part
would
two.
love, let me tell you, the more information, the better, because I
Yeah.
think this is a great opportunity to learn. I mean, I think that because as I've listened to you, I feel like there's a connection there. I said it earlier, and I'm very curious about that connection.
Mhm.
I truly believe that it is there. Now, is there anyone that does like poetry as in the Gullah language?
So there's a Gullah Bible. Dr. Emery Campbell, who is also
Okay,
an author in this book, Dr. Louise Coyne, they read that Bible in the Gullah language. And the group that I was telling you about earlier that does they adorn themselves with the African wardrobing.
okay.
They're called El Shaddai, and there's a young lady or two that's in that group that also reads the Bible in the Gullah dialect. But I am sure there's some poetry that someone is doing. I just don't
I
know.
think that would be really cool to hear some poetry.
Yes, some
I
poetry in the dialect.
yes,
Um, there's some connection that I have in the Charleston area. There's some connection, and there's few connections down in, like I said, in Savannah. So it would not be hard for us to get more people who are doing different things to make
yes.
sure that this culture does not die out, that it stays
I
rich.
I welcome anyone that you think is interested, please
Hmm.
share my information because I would love to have them on. And I have to, bring up, there was a show that my children used to watch,
Yes,
Gullah Island. I
yes.
remember I was so happy about that show. And, I remember we were living in North Carolina at the time, which I didn't even know North Carolina had Gullah ties. I didn't. But
Wilmington.
I
Hmm.
remember my kids loved that show so much. And I really thought it was a very good show for children, but I thought it was like, what a great thing for this culture to be exposed, and it was a very popular show. So, how important was that show to the culture, and what did it do for the self-esteem for those who had struggled with their identity of being of Gullah?
Bridget, that show helped me embrace me as a child, embrace it. Though my self esteem still was not very high, but when I watched that show, it just brought a different sense of confidence out of me.
Yes,
And I noticed that with my nieces. So they watch Gullah Gullah Island, like the reruns, of course, because it's not
yes,
on air anymore. And they absolutely love it. They are very confident little girls, very proud to be who they are. And I'm sure that speaks for a lot of the homes and a lot of the families, because
yes,
it was to see someone that looked like you on national TV. That was the big thing. But then
yes,
when you hear them speaking like you talk,
yes.
that was the
I thought that was cool. If I remember correctly, their names are Ron and
and
Natalie,
Natalie Days, Ron
right?
and Natalie Days.
And
Yes,
I loved how they explained certain words. Like I remember them talking about Binya, the polywog, but where
yes,
the name came from. And I just thought they did a great job, and I loved how they embraced other cultures, you
yes,
know. I just thought it was a great show all around, and I
It
really think
was.
that they should be given props for what they did with that show.
Yes, well, they definitely are matriarchs and elders in our community, and we love them, and we have so much high respect for them. And I will never, ever, ever forget Gullah Gullah Island, ever.
Yeah, I
I will
tell
talk
you,
about
my
it.
kids are my kids are in their 30s now, and I tell you, that was a show that they never missed. They loved all the songs, and like I said, I thought they did a very good job of how they presented the culture. Because
Mhm.
sometimes, a show like that, they could have stereotypes, they could do something that would be more hurtful than, do more harm than good. But I think they did a great job on that show.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
I appreciate all the information that you shared today. I think it's been a great learning opportunity, not just for me, but for the viewers.
Yes.
And I would love to learn more. And so, like I said to you earlier, I would definitely love for you to come back if you know anyone that's interested. Because I would love to learn more about the food and the people in general and
Yeah.
what does it mean to them? Because as I mentioned to you earlier, I'm a Maroon. It's something that I'm very, very proud of, especially once I really took the time to learn the history of the Maroons. It was
Yes.
something that it's just a feeling of pride that I have. So in your closing thoughts, I would like you to talk about what it means to you to be of the Gullah community and what are your hopes for the community.
For me, it means resilience, and it means, spirituality. It means long standing. It means history, and it means we are a part of this country, and we are America. That's what it means to me. And I would love for families and members of families to keep talking about, the different things, whether they were right, wrong, or indifferent. Celebrate everything and document and share everything. Share about your family's history, share where you came from, share what you know, because we don't want to get it lost in the sauce.
Yes, I mean you said it perfectly. I mean, once again, thank you. You had a schedule adjustment and you still, came and did it. So I know that, like I said, I appreciate it because I understand
Yes,
how it is. But
yes,
yeah, thank you so much. And I know you'll be coming back in January. And,
yes, ma'am.
I am really looking forward to our next conversation.
Thank you so much, Bridget. Yes, I will be back, and it'll be an entourage of people coming on your show in the Gullah community.
I I am looking forward to it. I'm definitely looking forward to it. And I'd like to say to the viewers, we welcome your questions and comments. So if you're watching the replay and you have a question for Fakita, please feel free and she'll get back in touch with you. So I'd like to say to everyone, take care, God bless, and have a wonderful week. Take care, Fakita. Thank you
Thank
once
you.
again. Take care.
Thank
Bye
you so
bye.
much. Bye bye.